happy that you're all here. Thank you for being here. Thanks to Fempolet for having me. So before we start, I would like to take a moment to just come in this space. So if you feel ready, then just come up in a comfortable seat wherever you are. Shake your shoulders a little bit, maybe stretch up your neck, do anything you need to do to kind of, it's interesting, like if you think about animals, right? Like if dog is doing something, like even laying for a long time, or even when you pet a dog, usually when they start moving, the first thing they do is they shake, like they shake off the energy. And it's actually a thing to like when we hold a lot of tension in our body or even a posture for a really long time, that like we get stiff. So just shaking off the day, and allow yourself to close your eyes for a second. Just slowly releasing your eyelids and check in within, check in with your body. Notice if there's any more tension. And if you're ready, you can let it release. If it's not quite ready to be released, just let it be there. Just be aware of it. And let's take 3 deep breaths together, okay? Just to come in this space, to be present and to be here. So go ahead and exhale all the air from your lungs. Then take a deep inhale through your nose. And let it out. You can exhale through the nose or lips, whichever works for you. Again, inhaling in. And exhale out. And one more time, inhale in. This time, hold the breath at the top just for a second. Keep that energy within. And slowly let go. Okay, when you feel ready, you can come back, open your eyes. Thank you for being here. Thanks for coming within. We need that after all day. So if we haven't met before, my name is Linda. I've done a couple of events for Fempolet. I was fortunate enough to do it back in days before we could actually meet in person and hug and share and talk, which was really fun. But I'm happy to have the opportunity to be here in this space. So as Clara said, just to give you a little bit of introduction about my background and where I'm coming from, I usually tend to jump into things right away and I forget that people don't know me. So in terms of my spiritual journey and the way how I entered was through yoga. And I started studying the Eastern philosophies and practicing those as well. But there was always a part of me that wasn't finding that, what we try to find through these practices, like finding myself. And the thing about a lot of these philosophies was that it teaches to let go, to drop something. And I did that. I spent a lot of time trying to be independent, not needing anyone, not needing any of these material goodies that we get to enjoy in this world. And I realized that was the part that wasn't really working for me, that I do want to have a sense of spiritual and a soul connection, that there's something higher or bigger than just my intellect and my that thinking mind, that there's something more. But I didn't want to give up everything to find that. And I believe that we are also moving into the time and age when we are not even meant to completely renounce everything, like back in the days when yogis would just give up everything and would go and meditate in caves for ages, and that it would take a really long time to reach certain enlightenment or self-realization, or even like self-understanding. And that is where I actually started finding myself, as what Clara said, that I can have money, I can have relationships, I can have whatever I really want, and still be spiritual, and still have this practice that is deeper than what it was before, when I was just following a path of convention. So this is where I'm coming from, and I was lucky enough to also start working with women and coaching and guiding women to go through this process themselves. And it's really beautiful to see how we can have both of a little bit from both words, that there isn't, it's not either or, and that's something that I'm really passionate about. Now, coming to our topic today, the burnout and procrastination, I think it's quite, I'm guessing a lot of us have experienced it, certainly this year. And I've heard a lot of those questions or remarks about burnout being tied to COVID, and how we are trying to make it work within this situation, which is important, of course, but there's been something that's bugging me quite a lot, which is that people say, what am I supposed to do? Like, this is my new normal. Like, this is, how am I going to deal with it now? And I'd like to just point out that there's nothing normal about the situation that we're in. It's not something that is, it's going to last for some time, but it's not something that is going to be lasting forever. I believe also from the energetical standpoint that we are in a time of big change. And this whole situation this year is just a symptom of it. It's not really what's causing it, but it's that fire that we need to move into that direction. So all of, of course, all of the experiences that we are coming through are heightened in terms of feeling stress and also not knowing what to do. But that is too what I'm trying to say. We need to be really easy on ourselves in this situation. We need to be go a little bit easier on the kind of expectations that we have from ourselves. Okay. Now, as we have, or as Clara has mentioned before, I said that the burnout and procrastinations are two sides of the same coin. And from the teachings that, or the traditions that I've been learning, these two opposites are the polarities are in the actions, right? Like, it's either excessive action or deficient. And that has to do with our third chakra, the Manipura chakra. And if you don't align with the word chakra, you don't even have to. What I like to use it as an approach for, like, from the psychological standpoint, and the action is also connected to our self-esteem. And there is there is, either if we find ourselves on either polarity of the spectrum, you can sense that the actions that we do or we don't do have consequences, and they reinforce this kind of self-esteem that we have about ourselves. So let's say that we so from my experience, I used to live in the United States, and I used to work there, and I would go to school for a few years. But the last 2 years, what happened was that I was working 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. And it was really full on. It was full-time job, full-time school, a lot of responsibilities. And I didn't have the time to actually rest and actually relax. And when I would come home, which was once a year for Christmas, I would sleep like the 3 days straight, the first 3 days. And I would tell myself, it's the jet lag, but it wasn't the jet lag. It was me just being really exhausted. But now looking back, I was thinking about what was driving me to do this. And I think it's important for us to ask this question, because there is a certain belief that is driving us to be this way, to push ourselves more. And the same thing is on the opposite end, like in terms of procrastination. A lot of people that I think each of us has experience with procrastination, right? And I know that also from my own experience, it's not that we don't care. It's not that we are lazy. It's not that we are complacent, right? There is still some underlying current of thoughts and belief that is preventing us from taking that step, that is preventing us from showing up. And as I mentioned before, it always comes back to our self-esteem. Like, what do we believe that we have to do? And from this, I maybe I would even say spiritual level, I find that people who deal with either these situations in their life, myself included, was that one of the core beliefs was that I am alone. Like, it's all up to me. If I don't handle everything, it's not gonna get done. If I actually go and do something that I wanted to do for a really long time, and I mess it up, I'm the one who is responsible, to which, like, some extent, of course, I am the one who is responsible. But it's this idea that that we are the only ones in power, and there is not a support system that we have to kind of lean on to. And this, it always comes back, the belief that we have, they always come back into our childhood, and they always go back into the way that we were growing up and what was being imprinted into our subconscious mind. Now, they say that, I think you've heard it, right, that you are the 5 people that you hang out the most with, the 5 people that are in your environment that you most frequently interact with. And the same things goes for when we are children, when we're growing up. So, like, our parents, if it wasn't parents, it might have been the primary caregivers, teachers, our classmates in school, but usually those are the authority persons that have some sort of impact on our subconscious. So when it comes into I know it's quite frustrating when we ask ourselves, like, okay, I'm tired, but I don't give myself the break, and why am I so incapable? Why can't I go and start a project that I wanted to start with? So it's important to start to ask yourself, what is that underlying belief? Sometimes it's even trauma, and it doesn't have to be trauma in terms of something really bad happening. It can be just when we were kids and we were in a crib, and let's say our mom was in the bathroom and we were crying and calling for her, but she wasn't coming, and that already is experience that kind of says to us, okay, I'm not being taken care of. So all these experiences have a big impact on us, and I just want to share. Let me see. I had it open. When we are going through the experience of burnout or procrastination, it's causing quite a lot of stress on our physical bodies. And can you see my slide? Yeah. Awesome.
Yes.
So when we are in either or of these polarities, we live under an enormous amount of stress. And as you can see, the stress is, let's back up just for a second, okay? So the stress that we experience is also called a fight and flight mode, and it is there for us to, it's actually a good thing that we get stressed. It's actually a good thing that we experience this, because it's what is it doing is keeping us alive. Let's say that you're in a forest and there is a bear, right? And so the way that we save our lives, if the animal starts attacking us, or that we notice that we are in a dangerous situation, is that we freeze, that we don't move so the animal wouldn't notice us, or that we fight the animal, which hopefully doesn't have to happen, or we flight, we run away. And that is such it's an important instinct for us to have. But the stress that we live under right now, is the problem with that stress is that we perceive it as life-threatening, and a lot of the times it's not. And the cycle of emotions and of this process doesn't get completed, because when we are in the forest and we're stressed and we're tense and then we start running, the hormones that are being produced, the cortisol and other stress hormones, they actually help us to run faster and to things like have a really good critical decision making in that situation. And even as it's written here, like the decreases blood circulation in our organs, and it starts pumping the blood into our limbs, because that's where we need energy, right? Because then there's the oxygen, and the oxygen gives us energy, and we need it in our arms and legs so we can run away. But if we are in a situation and we are completely under stress, and we are constantly under stress, like we don't, or at least I'm assuming that if you feel stressed in your job or at home, you don't get up and start running away. Like we don't have the release of that energy, and we start storing these hormones inside of our body, and not just store hormones, but also the emotional experience in our body. And that has a big impact over a period of time. So just quickly to say, the stress shuts down metabolism and reproductive system. It kind of makes sense. Like if you think of all the organs, like if you were running away from a dangerous situation, pretty much anything that you don't need at that moment is gonna get shut down. So, and we also start breathing on a very superficial level. Decrease of blood circulation. As I said, the blood is pumped towards the limbs so that the oxygen in our blood gives us the energy to actually run away. It compromises our creativity, because when we are stressed out and we are nervous, we cannot relax and we cannot see our options. We have very narrow vision in terms of our mind, like thinking what am I going to do next? Because we are not thinking creatively, we are thinking in terms of survival. How am I going to survive? What is my next step? And it's, last but not least, it's the inability to relax. And I know that sounds quite weird because you say to yourself, but I do relax. Like I do take my, glass of wine. I do watch a movie. I have practices that makes me feel relaxed. But the thing about resting is that if we are in a constant mode of stress, which is what most of us can find ourselves in, it's not that we allow ourselves to rest and to relax, but we numb ourselves. And over a period of time, our nervous system gets used to, it actually becomes addicted to the stress. It becomes addicted to these high and lows. Like, we need that. And that's why we cannot find a proper relaxation. Proper relaxation is when you feel actually refreshed, when you feel like you can read a book and you absorb the information from a book, when you try to just numb yourself because your body needs the break and your mind shuts down so it doesn't have the space to take any more information. That's numbing ourselves. And that's also how our addictive tendencies happen. And I'm sure that a lot of us and coping mechanisms, and I'm sure that many of us have experienced it, like binging, be it binging on food, binging of television, substance use. Some people only relax with having a glass of wine or having a cigarette, which is fine to have that. But the question is, are you actually relaxing? Are you actually enjoying it? Or are you standing outside like nervous, taking your 5 minutes, but not getting that rest out of it? It can be through sex, it can be through, anything, even going for a run, even doing yoga, like that can be a sense of that can be a way of numbing ourselves instead of being present with what is actually coming up. We choose something that's, it looks that it's better, like I'm not doing drugs, but we're still not being present with ourselves. We're still not experiencing or not listening to what is it that we need to do. And last but not least is the destructive thought patterns, is that the thought that's coming and like on repeat in our head, like I'm a loser, why can't I do anything, why am I like this, why is it so hard? And the thoughts that are not very helpful. Now I want to kind of show you, let me see. All right, so I'm sure that every one of us has tried to do something about it. It has tried to change the patterns of workaholism or procrastination. And sometimes it's quite, it's challenging to change that. And this is something that I would like to talk about, and it's our mind. I think we need to understand how our mind works. How does it work? Because when we start understanding how are our actions formed, then we can start doing something about them. So our mind is divided into conscious, something that we are aware of, and the subconscious part. Now, the conscious part is about 10% of that has a power over 10% of our decision making and our actions, and the subconscious part has a about 90%. Sometimes it's 95.5. It depends how conscious, how aware we are. So the conscious mind has a power over our reasoning, our critical thinking, our logical. It's a part that is storing our short-term memory and our willpower. The subconscious mind is storing our beliefs, our emotions, our habits and addictions, the values that we have, intuition, our imagination, creativity, and also long-term memory. Now, these 90%, the beliefs, the emotions that we have, and the habits, those are like the driving forces of, because I believe that I'm weak, then in my logical thinking, it would be I'm not going to apply for this job because I'm not good enough. So that subconscious mind is driving our conscious and the critical mind that we are using to actually make decisions. Now, Carl Jung said that unless you bring the subconscious into conscious, it's going to make decisions for you. And that is true. And that's why I say that it's important for us to ask, look into why are we doing what we're doing when we understand that it's not good for us, because until we understand where it is coming from, we're not going to be really able to make those changes, and we're not going to be able to, the moment we bring it up from the subconscious into our awareness, even being able to look at the sabotaging patterns that we have, that is a big thing, because now we understand, okay, there's something that I'm doing and that's not helping me. And it kind of gives us a clue, okay, why am I doing it? Now, or gives us a clue as I start asking ourselves that what is behind that. Now, a lot of the times in terms of the actions that we have, like in terms of binging and burnout, either not asking for help or not being able to say no, we try to change those. We try to change, let's say, like when we say, oh, on Monday I'm going to start going to gym, and I'll be going to gym 3 times a week. Like I bet that each of us had made this some sort of promise to ourselves and didn't deliver. And we constantly try to do that thing that we promised ourselves to do. Okay, I didn't start this week, I'm going to start next week. But those actions, or the fact that we don't show up, that's just a symptom. That's not a reason. So it's not about trying to give ourselves hard time for something that we're not doing, but understanding, why am I not doing it when I know it's going to be good for me? That's what is in our subconscious. That is what we need to uncover and bring up, so that we can slowly start unpacking the reasons for our procrastination and burnout. And I'm talking about procrastination and burnout in this particular time, but it's encompassing all areas of our lives. It doesn't have to be in this specific topic. Now, why is it so difficult to make those changes? Why is it difficult to actually start shifting? And it really helped me to understand how our brain works in terms of creating new habits. So the 2 main functions for our brain is preservation and conservation of energy. So our brain is trying to preserve us, is trying to keep us alive and healthy. And to do that, it's referring to the experience we had in the past. And again, it can be referring to the experience we had in our childhood. We might have had any trauma, or didn't feel heard, didn't feel seen. Maybe we did something that we felt like really proud about, maybe a project for school that we were working on, and then we presented it and it wasn't accepted, we didn't get the grade we wanted on, all that things that can happen. And when we have that experience from the past, oftentimes we want to remember the negative, because our brain kind of releases the positive experiences, and we hold on to the negatives because we remember, okay, that was something that was endangering me, and I need to remember that, so when it happens in the future, I don't put myself in that position again. So that is in terms of preservation. And now for conservation of energy, it's trying to, like I think the brain takes about 60% of the fuel that we put in our body. Like it really needs a lot of energy, and it's trying to work the most efficient way. So it's connecting point A to point B. And let's say that the action that you're doing is not helpful to you, but it's still the shortest way. Like it's still the shortest circuit for your thought process. And when you try to put in a new habit, new action, it's taking a more energy to do that, and that's why it's challenging for us to actually stick with it. And they say it takes about 21 days to create a new habit. In Kundalini yoga, we say it's about 40 days to actually that habit to be imprinted in your brain, and so it becomes part of you. But when we understand why some things are not happening the way we would like, or the way, why is it still this way when it's not good for me? I find it quite helpful to understand how are our actions being fueled and formed. So as I said, new habit is challenging because more cognitive energy is needed. Like we actually need to be conscious about that habit. We actually need to be conscious. And it's even more challenging for our thought processes, because if we have a thought process that is self-sabotaging, that when we put ourselves down mentally, when we are talking ourselves down, like to shift that, it takes not just mental energy to actually start talking a new way to ourselves, but it also takes energy for us to keep in mind that there's something that's going to work for us better in the long term, although it's challenging to start practicing it at the beginning. And belief system governs our behavior. That's something that we talk about before, the kind of beliefs that we have about ourselves, about the people in our life, about the world around us. The thing about our subconscious is that it always is seeking for confirmation of our beliefs. So if I believe that the world is a dangerous place, I will always look for confirmations outside of me that will confirm that. I will look at the news, the old things that go back, all the ways that people are treating each other that I don't like, and so on and so forth. If I believe that I'm not worthy enough of having a partner in my life, I'm gonna be attracting or seeking out people that confirm that behavior, that are not gonna be treating me nice, that are not gonna be supporting me in the way that I would want to be supported. Like, it's incredible once you become aware of your belief systems and your thought patterns, how much your reality and your world is actually mirroring them back to you in the way that you experience your reality. And that's why I really do believe that it's reality is not set in stone. Like, we can always change that. We can always change the way that we do things and the way that we show up in the world and how the world shows up for us. It's just about believing or creating beliefs, reframing the beliefs that we have about who we are and what we deserve and what is healthy and what is not healthy for us. So I know that many of us have this, this voice inside our head that you suck, you are not good enough. Why have you been this way? And it not just towards ourselves, but we can also project it, right? Like, because that would be if you're more in the overactive of the workaholic and excessive activities, when we say, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna take care of it, and we do things for people, and we don't receive help, we don't allow ourselves to be helped, then there we also create a lot of resentment towards others to when we say, oh, they didn't help us, why wouldn't she see that I'm tired and wouldn't give a hand? And I think it helps when we start actually listening to those voices, and when we start understanding where they're coming from and what they need. And I really like the saying, if you can beat them, join them, in this sense, because when we have those limiting beliefs and these voices in our head, the thing is, they're not going to go away. You can never turn your mind, you can never shut it down, and you can never make it disappear. And I've noticed that sometimes when people start meditating, they think that it's the purpose for it is to turn the mind off and turn off the thoughts, but they're never going to stop. And so if we don't make friends with them, then we're going to be always at war with ourselves. And it is very helpful to, when we have those negative thoughts about ourselves and about the world around us, to start connecting with them, to start checking with them. Because they can actually lead you to the subconscious beliefs that you have and might not have been realizing right now. And some of the experiences that I've noticed are coming up the most in terms of procrastination, burnout, is guilt and shame. One of my teachers, I love the way she framed it. Guilt is saying that I did something wrong, and shame is that there's something wrong with me. When we feel ashamed for who we are, or we feel ashamed from our actions, which we understand that come from our inner self. And I think the fastest way to get out of this pattern is with acceptance, accepting that I have limitations, accepting this is where I'm at. I need to find a way out of here, but this is who I am, and these are my thought patterns, and this is my past, this is what happened in the past. And I find it quite helpful when we can move from shame into guilt, because a lot of times when we feel ashamed of who we are, when we make it part of our identity, it's difficult to take a step back and to start seeing it as something that's not part of us, because that's not who we are. procrastination and burnout, they hurt us, right? But we don't want to hurt ourselves. Like, I'm guessing, like, everything. I'm guessing that none of us go to a kitchen and start cutting ourselves. Like, we don't want to. We don't want to actually hurt ourselves. If we're doing something that is hurting us, both, like, it might be hurting us mentally. It might be hurting our productivity. It might be hurting our relationships at personal and at work. But we are not doing it to consciously hurt ourselves. And that is the kind of acceptance I believe that we need to have when on either end you find yourself, that what you're doing is actually asking and calling for help. Like, that inner part of you is calling for help. And that is a very beautiful place to be in, to understand, okay, I really do believe that everything we do or say is either declaration of love or asking for love. And when we're doing something that is not invigorating, that's not giving us energy and making us feel alive, most of the time is something part of us that's asking for help, and that needs to be recognized, and that needs to be healed and brought up and made peace with, so that we can move on. And it always does start with acceptance of where we are, and from there, because as I said at the very beginning, unless we made the subconscious conscious, we cannot start moving on. Like, that subconscious is going to be driving us. So let me stop sharing this for now. Cool. I have some questions here. We have about 10 minutes left. So if you have any questions, it would be great for you to start typing them in. You can even share your own. As I said, you can send it to me in a private chat if you don't feel comfortable. And I'm gonna answer them. What I see as the biggest problem is that most of the people weren't raised, educated in a place where human beings have feelings, and we should work with them and don't be worried to talk about them. We are taught that if you want to feel and look good, you should work out and eat well. But what about our mind? We need to work on it too every day. Thank you, Fempolet and Linda, for doing this for us. Thanks, Danny. Yeah, it's true. Our emotions and our feelings are big part of who we are, and yeah, I definitely believe that it's important to have that, and it's it's important to have them expressed, because if we don't express our emotions and our feelings, it's scientifically proven, like, they're being stored in our body, and a lot of the time they find a different way of showing up. Sometimes, let's say, people with chronic disease or chronic pain get these alignments because they're not expressing themselves, and they only allow themselves to rest when they're sick. Otherwise, they don't take a day off, and that's when the body and mind needs it, that's how they ask for it. That's how they that's how they take it, and they do take it. So, like, we do need rest. We do need to express our emotions. Like, that needs to happen, because if you think about it, let's say that you get a job, or that guy asks you for a date, or you have a child that's just got born, and we feel happy, we express it, like we let that experience out of us, right? It's like we hug people, we share it, we talk about it. So like the positive emotions there are quite naturally shared, but we don't do that with the, I don't want to say negative, because I believe there's no negative emotions, there's no negative feeling, everything is just kind of clue. But those that are a little bit challenging or not as Danny said, they're not as accepted in society, we suppress them, but they still need to be expressed. Is it possible to overcome burnout and procrastination? I believe it is. I believe it is when we become conscious, that when we become, when we set our life in a way that we prevent burnout by taking care of ourselves and by managing our time and energy and realizing that we have limitations and that we are not supposed to or even able to do it alone. And I believe that procrastination is a lot of time also driven by fear, you know, the fear that I will succeed, the fear that I will have to sit in front of people and talk to them, the fear that I will have responsibility once I start making a lot of money, once I start having that success I want, it's going to come with responsibility. And if any of those are reasons why we hold ourselves back, I think it's important to dive into those and start unpacking them little by little. But I believe that we can do that. Satnamji. I used to teach Kundalini yoga. Thanks for sharing. Awesome. I love Kundalini, is also a big part of my practice and the practice I do with clients. It's beautiful technology, beautiful. It's called Kundalini Yoga, but I teach it as a technology because it's quite, it's a yoga for what they call the householder. So for us that actually have responsibilities, for people who don't have 2 hours in the morning to sit and meditate, you can do it in 3 minutes or 11 minutes and be ready for your day. It's a beautiful practice. I love that. Any other tools that you can give to help with burnout and procrastination other than breathing? Thanks. Yes, I'm gonna get to it. I had one last slide that I wanted to show, but I wanted to have time for your questions. So here we go. What now? So asking for help. It's incredible how again, that's something asking for help is, you know, how I mentioned at the beginning that we have this idea that we have to do it alone, and we are not meant to do it alone. So asking for help in terms of having somebody who can unpack all those reasons and the subconscious happenings for you, be it by showing up for events like this or finding a community of people that are dealing with the similar things and are accountability buddies, finding a coach like myself or any other. There's so many beautiful people that do it. I work with coach. I have my own therapist. I have my own also spiritual person. We're not meant to do it alone, and we actually can't. Like, it's beautiful because when you practice with somebody, they give you a mirror. They show you what you cannot see. That's the power of being with another person, being with in community and collective. One thing that I say about asking for help, I find it quite difficult to do that with family members. I always think it's better to ask and work with somebody who can be objective. And, you know, when we are having hard time, and definitely share it with your friends and share it with your family and your partner. That's, of course, talk about it. But they are also emotionally invested in your well-being, and when they see that you're not doing well and feeling well, then it's also gonna make it really hard for them, and they're not going to be the best in giving suggestions and guidance. I really do believe. Even being coach myself, I don't do much for my family other than listen and give hugs and so on. Realistic expectations. Look, if you are starting to change a pattern, it's not going to happen right away. Like we need to set a realistic expectations of how fast this process can happen, how fast a change can happen. In the fourth way school of thought, something that I study, it's something called a law of three, and that it says that you always need three forces to make something happen. So if you think about, let's say, a seed that falls from a tree. So seed is one force to grow a tree. Then it falls on the ground. That's the second, right? Like when it's planted in the ground. And what is the third force? What else do we need to make it happen? We need sunlight. And the third force can a lot of the times be something. It doesn't have to be just one thing. So you can think about your options for the third force. It can be the sunlight. It can be the rain, oxygen. Those are the elements of the third force of something that's going to help us to make that action happen. So let's say you are one force, another force is the inability to make change. Maybe it's your burnout, maybe it's your procrastination. How can I disrupt that happening? How can I disrupt that pattern? And that's by inviting a third force in. So maybe it's working with a coach, maybe it's reading a book, maybe it's starting a new practice, and so on. Journaling is quite helpful. I wrote 2 questions here. What are the benefits of your actions? And it can seem quite weird, like how can procrastination be benefiting me? Like what is good about it? And as I said before, we're just trying to manage some kind of pain, and our procrastination is trying to protect us, right? Or our burnout, like why do I have resistance asking for help? Like what is actually the benefit of this action? What is the benefit of me not doing this work? Well, I'm not taking risk that I'm going to fail. Maybe it's simple as that. So looking into why am I doing without judgment, without being harsh on ourselves, what is actually the benefit of doing this? And if you take a big picture, step back to look at it from a different point of view, what are you willing to accept as your action step going forward? Are you willing to work with someone? Are you willing to show up for another talk? Are you willing, what can you do? Because the will, as I mentioned earlier, in that subconscious conscious mind, the will is something that's conscious. That's something that we can influence. So what can I do, and what am I willing to do and to admit to myself? And I also mentioned books that I really like. The first, War of Art, and people sometimes think that I got it wrong, but I didn't. It's a great book about procrastination and resistance and creativity, even for non-creative person. It's just about life. It's a beautiful book. Tao Te Ching, the Book of Life, if you haven't seen before, and the seven habits of highly effective people. I've read this one back in college, and it's one of the books I love coming back to. So this is it from me. I'm gonna look. Okay, so before we finish, I'm gonna put in case you want to get in touch with me, but I think we're going to also send an email in the conversation. I'm going to put my information where you can connect if you have any other questions.
We have one more question from Susanna. Maybe we will be able to answer.
I'm gonna get into the questions. I just want to put this in the chat box in case somebody needs to leave, but you would want to connect. Thanks, Lida, for your suggestions. You're very welcome. I have a teen sister who, as far as I can see, is building her way to burnout and procrastination. I feel like when we talk about this stuff in our 20s or 30s, it's already too late, or not too late, but definitely would be avoidable if we were more aware earlier. What do you think is the best way to approach younger girls who don't yet care about meditation and are not yet aware of their behavior that might lead to such a problem? Thank you for, I love this question. So, it's not, you cannot help anyone who doesn't want to be helped, who doesn't want to see it. And I understand that she is in a space where she is not aware of it. But still, I think honestly, you cannot really help anyone, even if you would want to. I think everybody has to do the work for themselves. And sometimes we have to go through certain experiences to get that wake-up call. And sometimes we have to go through it multiple times. And I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but the best way I've learned to influence other people is being the example yourself. So when you start taking care of yourself, when you start doing those things to prevent burnout and procrastination, when you are, being around her and talking to her, it always starts with us. And I think that's also the way that children learn when we are growing up. Our parents tell us things, but honestly, we learn the most we learn the most from the way our parents behave. So I would say, of course, if she comes to you with this topic, then talk to her. But unless somebody understands and sees that they need help, we cannot really help them. But be the example. That's the best thing that you can do for a sister, I believe. And if she asks, if she comes to you, then navigate her in a way that is going to be helping her, connecting her with someone, talking to her about it, giving her books and so on. I hope that's helpful. Okay. All right, looks like there are no more questions. So if that's it, yeah, looks like it. So thank you everybody for being here. My name is Linda. I'm really happy I had this opportunity to talk to you. If you want to connect, I've passed it my information, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thanks everyone for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I'll also add Linda's contact information in the post-event email that we will send out. Please don't be scared. It's just a way for us to find out how you liked it, how we can improve for the future, us with the topics, as well as maybe Linda for the future. So as you know, feedback is the king. And we will pass on Linda's information and the recording if you ever wanted to go back to it. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye.
Have a nice evening, everyone. Bye-bye.